Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is Nina Kovner with Passion Squared. And today, oh boy, today we have, I'm already about to cry and I haven't even started the intro. Today we have someone incredibly special to me, and I know someone that's going to become very special to you. With everything that is happening in our world, I felt that the most important thing that we can focus on right now is our mental health and mental wellness. And of course, the person I turn to and have turned to for it will actually be 13 years next month. Dr. Nancy Sobel has been my rock, my therapist, and what I call my lifesaver. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Nancy before we bring her on. Dr. Nancy Sobel is the licensed psychologist in private practice in West LA, California, specializing in the treatment of trauma and compulsive disorders. She works with individuals, couples, families, groups, and bands. Dr. Sobel has worked in the addiction field for over 30 years and has consulted in the development of treatment programs in the United States and abroad. Dr. Sobel is widely known for her work in the entertainment industry and has developed a unique style of therapy for musicians and artists who spend a large amount of time on the road. She helped develop the Music Cares Addiction Recovery Program, a charity for musicians funded in association with the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. Dr. Sobel has been involved in disaster relief work globally, and most recently in Haiti, where she founded the nonprofit called Gap Create to provide community assistance and education and mental health services. Dr. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nina. It is totally my pleasure to be with you, and especially at this time.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. You and I spoke earlier this week, and I shared a little bit about what was going on in the Passion Squared community, in the beauty community around this global pandemic. And one of the first things that you shared was that you had a meditation, a relaxation exercise. So I know I'm feeling still, jittery and anxious. And I think that's a beautiful place to start. So can we start with that?
My pleasure, and it will help me too. I just uncrossed my legs and kind of straightened out my back and tried to lower my shoulders down from my ears where they have seemed to be stuck lately. And this is just a brief one, guys. And don't be scared by the word meditation. Think of it as relaxation. So we're just going to take a couple of nice deep breaths, inhaling through our nose and exhaling through our mouths. And as you inhale, let your belly expand. You could even rest your hands on your belly and just breathe in deeply. And exhale. And one more time. Inhale, relaxation. Exhale, tension. And you'll probably already notice a quieting in your body. And if you feel like it, you can close your eyes and try to visualize a golden light right above your head, shining down on the top of your head like the sun and spreading warmth. And as you take each breath, inhale the light and the warmth down through the very top of your head, throughout your head, down the back of it, and down your face. Notice your face getting warmer And feel the warmth go down through your neck and shoulders, breathing in relaxation, exhaling tension, and just allow that warm, almost liquid light flowing down through your body into your chest, down your arms, into your hands, filling your abdomen, going down through your hips. Down through your butt, your thighs, through your knees, down to your ankles, filling your feet and your toes. And just sit a minute with that warm, liquidy, golden light filling your body. And then when you're ready, take your hands and rub them together, creating a warmth and energy. And then put them over your eyes, feeling the warmth you just manufactured, resting your eyes and your head. Sit like that for a minute. And as you feel ready, slowly lower your hands and allow the light to come back to your eyes, opening them as you feel ready, returning your energy back to the room you're in. And I hope that you get to do that a few times throughout the day when you need it.
I love that.
Good.
I love that so
I
much.
feel like we created some amazing energy together.
Yeah. So let's talk about rituals. You know, you and I talk about what we call recovery rituals. But, you know, in this time of upside downness of, like, you and I were talking the other day about the importance of even knowing what day it is. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I'm trying to kind of make things simple and catchy so people can remember them as tools for mental health and well-being. So you'll notice that I'm trying to do that and be concise. And what I've been thinking about a lot is routine, ritual, and reality, because I think those three things really got knocked out with our need to quarantine or socially distance and the fearfulness that's all around us as we talk about COVID-19. So the first thing is routine. If you're not used to being home all day, every day, you start to wonder what day it is. Maybe you don't wear your watch anymore. Maybe you aren't checking the calendar because you don't have a day full of appointments. So the first thing is just knowing what day it is and letting yourself be aware of that, and dress as if you were going to do your day normally. So definitely I've fallen into my athleisure wear routine since I've been home, but I have some nicer ones. It's not always the ratty sweatshirt, unless that's how you go to work. If that's how you go to work, by all means. But I think it's good, you know, to keep putting my earrings in and do my makeup and whatever makes me feel like I'm actually about doing my day. Having that routine and practicing those simple things. And in addition, my normal day is I wake up, I meditate, take the dog for a walk, exercise, have breakfast, and then start work. That's my normal routine. I'm trying to do as close to that as possible while I'm home. And one of the things I've done is I've created spaces in my living area that are allotted for each of those activities. And so, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to work. And I've tried to create spaces for each of those in a way that sort of simulates the idea of, okay, I'm leaving the house and going to work or what have you.
I love that.
So that's the first thing. And I wanted to talk for a minute just about our general reaction to this problem and the news and all the things that contribute to our anxiety, because I think that's the word, right? It's anxiety and loss of control.
Absolutely.
We normally have a lot of, as adults, we have a lot of autonomy. We decide where we go, when we go, we're responsible for getting ourselves there, etc. When we're going to shop for food. And now all of a sudden, all of those things are impacted. And I received an email the other day, and it was this friend of mine who's lovely and does all this coaching and great work. But she said, COVID-19, is it a crisis or the opportunity for a spiritual retreat? And I knew her intention, but I felt like, for me, it's both. It's a crisis. Come on, we can't deny it.
No.
And it also is an opportunity for a spiritual retreat. But am I being bad if I'm not only using it as a spiritual retreat? Or if I'm totally in crisis mode, is that bad? So rather than judging ourselves and doing that polarization, which is a typical trauma reaction, let's just try to find some balance here and be in reality with it. It feels terrible and it's scary. At the same time, suddenly we find ourselves being able to catch up on all the Netflix or movies that we didn't get to see, or maybe even learn some new skills that we've always meant to do. I mean, God bless YouTube. I can learn anything. Sketching lessons, great.
I want to touch on the polarization. I remember before I met you, I was quarantined in my literally self-quarantined in 35-day treatment program.
Well, before that, you were quarantined
Inpatient.
in another lifestyle.
I was quarantined in
That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, that would have been 41 years quarantined in dissociative disorder, and then 35 days waking up in inpatient treatment, and then of course meeting you. And one of the things that I remember was that living in the gray and that the black and white thinking. And when you said that polarization and that example of, are we gonna lose it, or are we gonna use this? That's what that's about to me. That's what that represents, is it's not one or the other.
Correct. And
because isn't it our own experiences, like honoring our own processes?
Exactly. And not everyone is going to respond exactly the same way. And also, we have to remember that as horrible as it feels, there are still parts of you that are very, very functional. I don't care who you are. I saw a homeless woman around the corner the other day organizing all her stuff on the side of the road. And to me, that was her level of functioning. She was organizing. And as troubling as her situation is, she was still able to access her own strengths and utilize them. And I think that that's an extreme example, but I think all of us do have strengths that are still intact. And you want to remember those and access them and think about, what are they? You also brought up an important word, Nina, which is trauma, because I think globalization, the extreme reactiveness, is a sign of trauma. And what do I mean by trauma? I don't mean the thing that happens. COVID-19 is not the trauma. It's how we respond to it, express it, and how people hear our expression of it that makes it traumatic or not. It's the space that we give to our feelings that makes something traumatic or not. Does that make sense to you?
It does. So what I make up about that is feeling our feelings is what, if we decide to stuff it down and pretend like I'm good and let's be strong, and minimizing our actual true feelings, that's where the trauma develops.
Exactly right. Or
Mm.
if you try to express it to a friend and your friend is all about, all the jokes and memes that are going around, as opposed to really dealing with how you're actually feeling the hard stuff. So
So
you want to
not feeling
find,
seen,
yes,
not
exactly, the
feeling seen.
compassion, the empathy, the mirroring. I get it. I hear you. Once you feel heard, then you can go on to the silly stuff.
The
But
LOLs. Yeah,
exactly,
that's
exactly.
such a good point. And when we talk about trauma, are there triggers happening? I am gonna assume a lot of people are triggered by old traumas.
Yes, and
What's happening
especially,
there?
yes. So there's this saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical,
Mm.
where if I'm having an overreaction, I'm probably bringing up something from my past that was also painful. And I think that this does it. Just the sound of the news bulletins coming on make me think about 9/11. Or,
Mm.
I've done a lot of disaster relief. So seeing the tents go up by the hospitals reminds me of the tents that we had in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, with the dirt floors. Every time I hear about a respirator, I think about the generator that had to fuel the respirator that kept going out, and people were very near death because we didn't have the power to even fuel the generators. So many of my own triggers happen when I watch the news. And I think that's true for all of us, and especially for people in the beauty industry. I think more than many other industries were struck by the HIV and AIDS crisis, and all of that news about this weird virus that was going to kill everyone and how scary it was, and not understanding how it was contracted and how to be safe. And it's very evocative for us. And I think that it's just something to pay attention to. If you're noticing an overreaction, you may want to ask yourself, what is this reminding me of? When else have I been through this? And even going back, because I'm a psychologist, I want to talk about your childhood. you
Yep.
know, the whole idea of, can we trust our government to take care of us? That harkens back to, could I trust my parents to take care of me when I was a little girl? And I think that the way I respond to current news event traumas is very linked to how I was protected and taken care of as a child. So I think that's important too, to just be aware of how your history can predict your hysteria.
That is, it's that's so important, that self-awareness. I have found myself very triggered by this, going back to screaming, marching, fighting at, in my late teens and early 20s around the HIV AIDS crisis, as friends were literally taking their last breath in my arms. And it's really hard. It's
Yes.
really hard to say, why won't you listen? Why won't you hear us?
And
And
now it's even harder because people are dying alone and
right.
families are not allowed to visit.
Yeah.
And I mean, just talk about your worst nightmare. And
Yeah.
so it's very, very painful. And it emphasizes the importance of us staying in reality. What's happening in your world right now? What's your truth? Taking care of the basics. We have to remember there was a guy named Abraham Maslow who talked about this hierarchy of needs.
Mm.
It's this triangle. And the bottom is your basic physical needs: food, shelter, clothing. Then you go into more relational things, having friends, that sort of thing. And then ultimately to a spiritual or deeper understanding of your role in the world and your connection to it and what it all means, the meaning of it all. But the first thing is food, shelter, clothing. So make sure that you stay in reality. That's why I wanted to emphasize that in the whole idea of routine, rituals, and reality. We got to take care of the basics first.
Speaking of reality, because I can jump right out of reality so quickly. Um, can we talk a little bit about financial anxiety. And, the reality is, as I shared with you earlier this week, I never thought in my entire 3-decade career I would be coaching and holding space and guiding my clients and loved ones to close their businesses. This has been so incredibly gut-wrenching and painful. And that the reality is, here's a business that all of a sudden one day has to shut their door. Talk about the financial stuff.
Well, let's look at the reality of that. And by that, I mean, how long is this going to last? And even though we don't know exactly, is it going to be a month, 6 months? It is going to be temporary. I feel certain, as we've already seen now, suddenly there are tests everywhere. Soon there will be immunization and prevention. So I think it's very important that we don't think about this as forever. And even if you had to shut your doors, let employees go, I know it's very, very difficult, but I urge your followers to be sure to stay in touch with their customers and stay linked, because they are going to need you. I mean, you guys provide a service that is ongoing and needed and will be needed. I'm thinking about my own dog even, and she's going to need a grooming.
Yeah.
I don't know how to trim her nails.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I don't think I can do it. I don't have the equipment.
Right.
That is going to be a service that is ongoing. And I'm only saying that, Nina, I don't right now, I don't have hair.
Yeah.
So I don't have the need as much, but it's coming in. So I may need it by the time this thing ends. I may actually need that. But this is a service that you provide that everyone needs. So stay, even though you had to close your doors, keep your mind open. And keep the idea of your business open and what it's going to look like when you come back, because using this time wisely is part of the work, right? So that comes us into, how do you turn this from a door closed to a door open?
And you have an exercise around that.
I just happen to have a little exercise. Nice segue.
I know. I was looking at our notes and I'm like, oh my God, there's an exercise. So can you walk us through this?
Sure. So this is just, and again, I just wanted to give you guys some tools to help you through this and kind of help you think differently about it. So what you do, first of all, is try to think about 3 times in your life when it seemed like a door slammed shut. And it could be your personal life, it could be your physical life, and it could be your work life. And it may be just 3 examples in only one area of your life. And then try to think about that door closing and how another door opened, because that's the saying, right? That when one door closes, another opens. So how did that other door open? So just take a minute, maybe jot some notes, or think about those 3 examples. And I'm not going to use up too much time. I'll let you do that. You guys do that on your own time. But then go back through your 3 examples and think about which one was the most important door in terms of the resulting door that opened. So I'm just thinking about a relationship that ended, and I thought it was the end of my world, and that it was just, the worst thing that ever happened. And of course, it left me open to meet someone that was a better fit. That's just an example. And then I want you to think about a door that closed through bad luck or a missed opportunity. Like, darn, I just was a little too late on that, or I wasn't in the right place. And how did that result in a door that opened? Try to think of an example of that. And then try to think about an example of a door that closed through loss, or someone dying, or a rejection. And then what door opened as a result of that? And I got that one very early. I had a very, very, very close friend from age 13 to 21. He died when we were 21. And my entire life work has been based on the lessons that he taught me in terms of making each moment count and not missing what you can do in lieu of what got lost. So kind of reminds me of the serenity prayer, right? The wisdom to know the difference, but having grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
It's a really good use of that with the door open or closed. And then what you want to do is notice your response to doors closing. What's your typical response? And is it generally, it's my fault, or the idea that closing door ruined everything and nothing's ever going to be good again and my life is over? Or do you tend to say to yourself, well, the door closed, but it's just temporary, or it's only one area of my life and there are still others that work. And the idea that you could be maybe more adaptive in the face of a door closing. So rather than personalizing it and thinking it's all me, or thinking it's pervasive and that my entire life is ruined, or that it's permanent, that it's going to last forever, instead to think this may be temporary. There are still parts of my life that function, and I'm not alone in this, and perhaps I didn't cause it. Perhaps there's other things I can do about it. And as you focus on the open doors, that will lead you to solution.
Oh my gosh, there's so much that came up for me. So there's two
You could
things.
do several podcasts on doors closing and opening, my dear.
I know. So when you were talking about, when you were just talking about all the things that are wrong and all the things, is that kind of where catastrophizing comes in?
Certainly catastrophizing, globalizing. And again, we have to remember that's a natural reaction. It's a natural first reaction, but hopefully you have a second and third reaction, which is, wait a minute, I'm not alone here. I do have other skills. I have a support system, etc. And to implement those.
I like that you said the first reaction, because let's get, like you said in the beginning, we cannot minimize, right?
Yes.
We have to honor and be in reality, when you're reality.
And you were talking the other day about
third reaction. I like that we get to have more reactions, and that kind of relaxed me a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, good. I can have 3 reactions, you know.
You can have 10
options. We can have 10. And we probably will have 10, right? We'll
Correct.
have many different stages of this emotionally. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And the other day we were talking about grief also. And that's a natural thing, right? The first reaction is often denial and shock. And then you start to bargain. Well, if I do this, well, if I do that, well, if I wear a mask, can I go shopping and get my groceries? Well, if I, go at this hour, it might be less closed. And then the depression, the anger, the frustration of not having control. I think that's the big one. Loss of autonomy is a huge loss right now, that we really don't get to choose how we're going to respond to this. We get to choose how we respond to the restrictions that are imposed on us, but we don't really get to choose those restrictions. So it's tricky. And it does set up a grief response for our old life. But I want to remind everyone again, it's temporary. And I hope that everyone's thinking about, when you open that new door, even now, as you stay in touch with your clients, keep yourself in their minds so that they can, have them send you pictures of how they're looking.
Yeah.
And, maybe you can make some suggestions for them.
Yes, we need
working the appearance.
We need somebody's suggestions. That's nice. I want to go back real quick to the grief, resentment. So I see a lot of resentment, a lot of projection, a lot of anger, because like it was only 10 days ago that we were like, wash your hands. Like you said, it's like it happens so fast, right? It's like, let's wash our hands. And then now let's not leave our house. Like that was literally like within days. So I feel like the shock is beginning to turn into resentment. And that's a lot of the conversations we've been having with our clients. So guilt, resentment, where's that coming from? Is that part of the stages of grief?
It's
Is
part
that
stages of grief. It's certainly normal. It's also when people personalize their experience and think that it's all about them, as opposed to, you know, this is something you can't do much about. I mean, it's a real example of powerlessness.
ooh, yes.
So what do we know about powerlessness? We have to practice acceptance. And again, change the things we can. So practice good hygiene, washing up, sanitizing, and then do the things that you enjoy doing, or use this time for something new that maybe you didn't have time to do before. I want to just talk about a couple of other solutions, if I may.
Yes, please.
Okay, one thing that's so important and often overlooked is sleep hygiene. So I don't mean just having clean sheets, although I have to tell you that it is a lovely thing to have nice clean sheets when you go to bed at night. So, that is one thing. But creating a nice area that is meant for sleep, not meant for sleep and dot, 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 as in staying online. I know I have been, made the mistake of watching the news as I fall asleep. Bad, bad, bad idea. So creating an environment for sleep that really is about sleep, not doing sleep and reading, sleep and watching TV, sleep in. So that's one thing. Another thing is having some routine and ritual around sleep. So you can do a couple things. One is you could have a cup of chamomile tea or lavender tea to have a sort of ritual and routine around sleep. You could listen to, there are so many great apps, Calm, um,
Headspace. I love Headspace.
Headspace, and I like Insight Timer.
Mm,
And all of those have great options for sleep meditation, sleep music, sleep stories. Insight Timer has a bunch of stories for children that are kind of fun for adults.
I love
So
that.
listening to a story as you fall asleep. So that's the kind of thing, just having a routine for your sleep, making sure your bedding's in shape, and just knowing this is the time I go to sleep. So in this period of sort of quarantine, this is the period where I'm maybe going to sleep a little earlier, or at least at a regular time. And I still set my alarm in the morning, because that's
Mm,
another thing that keeps my sleep regular, is if I know I have to get up at a certain time, I'm going to get to bed at a certain time. Sleep hygiene.
I love that. And then, okay, that's awesome. Can we talk about a couple questions from our community
Yes.
that I've been getting, and then I want to talk a little bit about a little more and on solutions and on some gratitudes and stuff like that. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of questions about um helplessness, feeling helpless. How do we step into hopeless versus helpless?
Well,
I
we
mean, hopeful, sorry.
we don't want
Hopeful
to.
versus helpless.
So I think that what I think about with hopelessness or helplessness is that I've given my power away. And I am going to argue every single day that I still have some power in how I manage my home, how I manage my time, and what I'm doing in my relationship with others. So I want to transform the hopelessness or helplessness into a sense of power.
I love that. And being of service, he said, in that
Yes.
service to others. Which, for those of you that are in recovery, you know that that is a big part of sobriety. A big part of recovery is in order to get out of our own heads, to be of service to others. That's really incredible. What about negative emotions, like when those pop up? Like, how do we catch ourselves going down the spiraling, and all that?
Well, you have a couple of choices. I really feel that it's important to give yourself space for those negative feelings, and also some physical expression if you can.
Mm,
So, wadding up pieces of paper and throwing it. I don't know if you have balloons in your house, filling them and popping them, running a bath and splashing the water. I don't know, punching pillows. Physicalizing it helps. And I think you have to give yourself journaling, of course, writing, calling your friend and making an appointment for a 5-minute whine.
Right.
I don't mean the wine you drink. I mean the whining,
Yeah.
Maybe then followed by a nice glass of wine, if that's your thing.
Right.
So I think making space for it first, don't stuff it down, and then finding a way to transform it into something productive. Because often at the source of my, especially my anger and resentment, is fear. So getting in touch with the fears and then trying to come up with some actions that I can take around those fears. Manageable bites. And I also sometimes will set a timer and give myself a pity party. 20-minute pity party. Yay. It's okay. That's all what I'm saying. Give yourself a little permission.
It is so okay. There are so many times in my mental health journey that you have reminded me that it's okay when I've been in my darkest hours, and it's just, again, where it comes from and why we feel that we're not allowed to feel all the feels, that's a whole nother therapy session, but just the reminder that, honor it and take it out physically. I remember that was part of the trauma work we did in rehab was physical expression of that. That's such a great reminder. What about guilt? Like why was I not better prepared? And guilt like people that are actually working and not losing their jobs and seeing other people losing their jobs. Like, where does guilt play into all this?
So is it guilt or shame? And then we have to talk about our girl, Brene Brown.
Always. Right? Brene is always going to pop into the conversation.
And the gift of imperfection. I mean, nobody is perfect. And many of us, there's all this stuff about, the boomers versus the millennials and, the different reactions to this whole COVID-19 crisis. And
then my generation, the Xers, the forgotten ones.
Right. I mean, I just think that is more of that globalization and polarization where we're labeling rather than whatever the response is, have the response, but then you have to move past the response. And I just wanted to introduce your listeners to a concept called positive psychology. And it's a huge movement in psychology. It was started by this guy named Seligman, Seligman. And I can't say enough about it. I think it's a very great way of approaching how to cope at a time like this. And if you look online, you'll see all kinds of activities for positive psychology and building resilience. So we know all about post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's also something called post-traumatic resilience. And there are ways to develop post-traumatic resilience. My work in Haiti is all about that. And the kids that I've worked with there have all identified their signature strengths. What's the one special thing that I bring to the group and that helps us function well? And that's something that we can all look at. And there are online resilience games, things that you can do in the time that you have right now to really build your skills in this area.
I love that. And those kids in Haiti, well, they're not all kids. They're not kids. They're
not kids anymore. They're going to start taking care of me soon.
They're grown-ups. I know. That's going to make me cry.
You had the opportunity to meet some of them.
I know.
When they were working because they went to beauty school.
They did go to beauty school.
Three of them. Yes.
So precious.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one more question from the community and then we're going to wrap it up with some gratitude practices and stuff like that. So we were talking about boundaries earlier, but there's a lot of what I see, a lot of codependency popping off when people are trying to control others' experiences. In particular, the judgment around so-and-so's not social distancing, so-and-so did this and they shouldn't be doing that. How do we get back in our bodies and how do we try to just step away from that never ending feeling of needing to control everyone else's experience?
Control and compare. And that, I think, is a big part of, being on socials. And
Yes.
yeah, social media, it's all about that and FOMO and everything else. But you're bringing up an important point that we could spend a whole other podcast on, which is boundaries.
Yeah.
Personal boundaries. What's my business? What isn't? And where do I express that? Do I express that? I hope not publicly. Because this is a time when I'm seeing a lot of mistakes being made on social media with people judging one another and expressing it and kind of going to town.
Yeah.
So try to think about your own personal boundaries and who is it that you really need to express things to, and sometimes how you can contain yourself. And it's very frightening because, if you're living with someone who's not practicing hand washing or being careful, that's a pretty dangerous place to be. And I think it's wise for you to consider them a carrier. I wish there was a different word than carrier. It sounds so animal-like, but a person who potentially has the virus, right? Because we don't want to be exposed. But remember also not to globalize, because you're probably only going to get it if they're coughing and spluttering and sneezing on you. Otherwise, you're not likely to get it. So then it becomes your own responsibility. Like in my house, I live with someone and we don't go in the kitchen at the same time right now. And we just really take care of cleaning the space after we use it. And we're really using a lot of distancing with each other, because he goes to the store almost every day and gets food and brings it in. And I've been cooking and keeping stuff. I did a big shop a few weeks ago and I've just been cooking up what I have. Mm-hmm. So everybody's different. And it's my responsibility to take care of myself and not be judgy about it.
I love that. Yes. And maybe we will do another episode on codependency, because that's my favorite topic, because hello.
No, okay, it's me.
So let's wrap this up with back to the routine, the ritual, and the reality. Gratitude rituals, mind rituals. What are some things that we can do to kind of get back to center?
So another great thing to do at the end of every day is a gratitude journal. 5 things you're grateful for. If you find yourself going negative, try to match every negative with 3 positives, just as an exercise. And lastly, I'd love for you to kind of think about a time when you handled a situation and you feel really good about how you handled it. So a little different than the door opening, door closing exercise. This is more your own personal story where you really handled something well. And write it down as a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And then think about it. And think about how you've internalized those assets and owned them. Again, harking back to signature strengths, really knowing what your assets are. And then have you made it kind of your personal brand? Do people kind of know that about you? And I think that's a great thing to work on. And I want to say thank you, by the way, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and your people.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Dr. Nancy. It truly is just like the having your experience and your wisdom and your strength and your hope and all of those things, not just right now, but always, has been
always.
I'm just so grateful. And thank you. Thank you. I know that you have your plate very full right now. A lot of us have mental health needs, and thank you for carving out the time. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions or need any support, you can find us at passionsquared.net, at Passion Squared, and you can find Gap Create. It's at Gap Create and Gap Create on Facebook. to learn more about the efforts that Nancy is leading in Haiti. Nancy, thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you so much. Love you more. Bye.
Bye.